Now for more diversity, and this is a topic from yesterday, the phenomenon, the mystery, what's the word? The runaway success of quiz games, in particular QuizDuell here in Germany. A Swedish teacher who made it into the biggest game in Germany. And to tell this wonderful story, I have Pär Hedelund, the QuizDuell specialist from MAG Interactive. Pär, the stage is yours.
So, there we are. Hey, welcome. This is a presentation called Start New Game, Designing New Quizdol. It's going to be a bit of a sort of combined hybrid presentation, both taking in the thoughts behind the design and giving some sort of historical retrospective into the game and where we've been. So, who am I? I'm Pär, as mentioned. I've worked on this game since the launch back in 2012 and in many capacities. And these are some of them. Basically, not writing any code or not doing any real graphical design. On the design side, I'm more of on the ideation side of that. And about Quizdol, how many in here have played the game or are familiar with it? It's a pretty good reach to be expected, I guess. But just as a reminder for those maybe who haven't, this is the basic sort of core game loop. You have your Start New Game button there, as is the title of the presentation as well. You start a new game, you play against an opponent, random or a friend, and you take turns in picking categories, answering questions, send it over to your opponent, they pick a category, answer questions, and send it back until you filled the 6 rounds, and then you have the result. You have a winner or maybe a tie, and you can play again to your liking. So, some facts about QuizDuell. As I mentioned, it was launched in 2012, more specifically in August 2012 in Sweden. The launch was iOS only. Android came later, around, I think, the end of the year. We have over 100 million downloads worldwide.
Ooh.
Ooh. Perfect audience reaction. It is the most popular game app in Germany over the last decade. And this is really interesting. When we regularly look in at the data analytics sites and look into these stats, and in various other markets like the US, etc., you can see it's your sort of the typical ones you see are Pokemon Go or Angry Birds or maybe Candy Crush, but in Germany, month after month and year after year, in terms of MAU and then YAO, it's Quizdol. And Tove mentioned actually yesterday to me that it was actually the biggest game, all categories, so not only mobile games, also covering console games, which is pretty cool, something we're very proud of. In 2019, we launched New Quizdol, the successor, and this was sort of a chance to start afresh, just get rid of all the baggage that you accumulate when you build an app over many years. It's also written in Unity, whereas the old app was written in native. And then there's this, of course, Mr. Pilava. Some of you might be familiar with this TV show as well. It's been running for many years now. I think it's on the 7th season currently running of the Olymp, where there's celebrities in the studio and the German audience can play against the celebrities. Also a pretty cool thing to have achieved. So, here are the guys, 2 pairs of brothers. I'll let you figure out who's brother with whom. From left to right, we have Olle, Henrik, Kalle, and Robert. So they're childhood friends, and around 2010, sometime earlier maybe, they started thinking about what can we do to make this big thing. And they were from different backgrounds. You mentioned the teacher, and Henrik worked in TV media industry. But they were keen to make something special and drawing inspiration from what was happening around the time. And they were very much into board games and also inspired by a game in particular called Word Feud. So again, show of hands, how many here are familiar with Word Feud or have played it? Might be a bit biased, but yeah. I think it's not as big in Germany as it is in Scandinavia, but in Scandinavia it's been huge. It's basically a very sort of bare bones app adaptation of Scrabble. Today there are lots of Scrabble interpretations. We have another one in Mag Interactive with word domination. And the most popular and well-known one is probably Words with Friends, the Zynga monster hit. But Word Feud stands out in that it's very bare bones and very it's basically taking the board. You can play your tiles and place them and make words and get points, and it's your opponent's turn and you throw it back and forth. No bells, no whistles. And that was 2010 when that was released. And so they drew inspiration from this and wanted to make a similar adaptation for the trivia games, such as Trivial Pursuit or similar. So that's what they did. Built up a database of around 8,000 questions. And an interesting piece of history from around this time in contrast to what the app market is like today and what you need to do in order to succeed and make yourself recognizable there. What they did when they launched the game was they were living in or in the vicinity of the 4 biggest cities in Sweden. So they went out to sort of communication and transportation centrals like subways, central stations, trams, and they handed out flyers for the game. And within 1 week of doing that, they were on the top 10 list in the Swedish App Store. Which is sort of good luck doing that today. You have to have a pretty amazing idea to make that happen organically. Design purpose. I mentioned it sort of. Translate the trivia board game experience into an app with emphasis on these things: accessibility, functionality, social aspects, and why these things. Well, it's sort of in line with what Word Feud did. You want to be very inclusive. You want the experience to be about the trivia and answering the questions themselves, not about the bells and whistles and making things look super cool outside of this. And also the question content, of course, it's very much the focal point. It's sort of the core of everything. So emphasis on quality and quantity. They started out, as I mentioned, with 8,000 questions. If the quality isn't there or if the quantity isn't there, you're not going to make it. Continuously updated questions, so that's part of how the work around the questions is. It has to be like if you answer questions in 2018 and play the game, it has to be relevant for 2018. Some questions will, of course, always be relevant, but it's sort of a continuous update of the database. The difficulty is building on the board game tradition. This can be approached in different ways, and I think different games have approached this in different ways. But this is to sort of create that sort of recognizability from. If you played trivia, you should feel right at home when you play this. The design should be there to emphasize the content. So with all these aspects in mind, where did we end up? I mean, this is a point where I feel extra proud to present the next slide, given what we have seen here before today. So this is where we end up. Yeah, gasp. Pretty cool. So this is what the game looked like in 2013. You have the Start New Game button there, drawing attention, drawing the eyes to everyone. And you have these aspects. So I did, when doing research for this presentation, I used this image and did a Google image search just to see what came up. And the things that came up were all like functionality, utility apps. Not a single other game app came up. Which is sort of the point with this. It's a very sort of utility-styled app, and it's very similar to Word Feud in that regard. And that's tying into what you said in the beginning about people regarding themselves as gamers. We want to include everyone, and this is something. Advice around creating a game, any type of game, and especially mobile games today. The advice is often to find your target audience, make sure you design for your target audience, but also think about who's not your target audience? Who are we not designing for, to not design it for them so you make like some sort of disparate product that doesn't really appeal to anyone? But this game is sort of an exception in that regard, in that it really appeals to, if not everyone, then a really big crowd of people. So we needed it to be inclusive. And some anecdotes from that. A couple of years ago, we had, it's many years ago now actually, at the office, we received a letter from a woman in her 80s. She was between 80 and 90, I forget exactly how old she was. She had broken her hip bone in her apartment. She was lying on the floor, she had called for help, and while she was waiting for help to arrive, she was so happy that she could play QuizDuell with her friends and family while waiting. It really helped the waiting time. Of course, we love this story. And it tells something about the game and the appeal of the game. And you sort of wonder, does she consider herself a gamer? You would say she is, I guess. And just thinking about my own parents, if I think back over the last decade, which game apps have they been playing? It comes down to two. It's Wordfeud and it's Quizdol. And I'm not alone in having that story. And something about the social aspects. We have been very cautious, conservative with sending out push messages in the app over the years. We're a little bit more open to doing that now when we want to highlight special things that we release, but we don't want to bother people too much, like some of our competitors do, because we feel there's a risk to scare off the casual audience. But this game is really driven by the users. So, I mean, when you have played and you wait for your opponent to respond, you will get a push message from them, and that's the kind of push message that is nice to get. So it's the users driving the usage, basically, or players driving the playing. Yeah, this is much more representative of, this is 2013, of what phones and aspect ratios were really like. I mean, no phones looked like that back in 2013. Yeah, content in focus again. The sort of the basic question view hasn't changed that much, like in essence. So we have tens of thousands of questions. In Germany and Sweden, it's in the region of 30K, 40K plus questions over 20 categories. 20-ish, differs a bit also from country to country. As I mentioned, continuously updated. So in the beginning, we grew these databases really, really quickly. Now today they're still growing, but not at the same pace as before. It's more about curating the content, making sure to get everything that's not relevant out and putting in things that really feel up to date. So when you play today, you should feel like it's questions for 2021 and all the questions that are always relevant, of course. And then the final point, localized content. It's hard to stress that enough or overestimate that. So localized is not the same as translated. You couldn't just grab the Swedish database that we built in the beginning and translate it to German. It wouldn't work. We have seen this in markets where we have failed. If the content quality isn't there, if it isn't localized, if it doesn't make sense for that given market, it just fails. So, of course, we have a fantastic content team working on this, and a German content team working on the German content of the game. And they have been around for a long time now, working on it. Yeah, here's just some look of how the game has looked over the years, the development. Start new game button is tagging along for every iteration, every update of the game. And yeah, I mean, you can really recognize yourself. So in 2019, we did a sort of bigger design updates. That was before the launch of new Quizdol, and we have another view, 2012 versus 2021, and I mean, it looks more up to date in 2021. Maybe you prefer the 2012. I won't judge. But the point is, if you play the game in 2021, you should feel just as home as if you played it in 2012. I mean, all the elements, the start new game button, the play button, it's all there. Design challenges. So, living and working with start new game. Because it's such a strong core loop of a game, is there a risk that overshadows if you want to achieve other things in the game, new features and such? Could we even challenge the button? We want to be agnostic, I think, but it's very unlikely that the button would ever be like entirely removed. But you should feel open. And why do we even want to evolve? This sort of ties in with the goal we have in the team and in the company. We want to be the best trivia game in the world. Some I think we already are, but we want to continue being that. And part of that we regard as being able to offer trivia experience that caters to all personal types, that how they want to interact with trivia. So I mean the basic standard game, it sort of appeals to casual users predominantly, but we have people who want to compete more like in a more stressful manner. We have people that maybe just want to be left alone and play on their own terms, and we want to cater to all of these different styles of playing. So we have some tools to help do that. Nothing revolutionary in this. We have the tab navigation bar and the carousel to highlight these things. And if you don't know what that is, we've pointed them out here as well. So in the carousel, rotating, we can highlight whatever we want at the moment. Of course, if you go into the German app today, for instance, you will, if you haven't played it already, you will find the special quiz that Tove announced yesterday and that was launched, running in the carousel. And I mean, the tab navigation bar, I mean, that's pretty much industry standard for categorizing your app's content. And virtually everyone is doing it. I mean, I don't know if YouTube has had it along for a long time, but I just recently discovered that they're using it as well. And these are there to highlight the new game modes, of course. So we're getting quite a few new game modes in new Quizdol. So we have Arena, which is a more intense game mode. Events played over the course of 24 hours. You grind as much as you want to fight against the 99 other players for a chance to place yourself on the top list, and you will win a gold medal, silver medal, or bronze medal in the given categories there. So it's more for like the more intense competitive player crowd. Solo is our latest release in game mode, and now you can see that the game is looking more gamified, and I think that's suitable. The audience has matured a fair bit since 2012 as well, and this is fine. So this was released in summer, the first version, and we just released the second version of the solo mode last week. So you play by yourself, and you set your own pace on what you want to progress to, fight your way to the top, and answer questions in different type of sort of question modes. And also we have QuizDuell Live, also exclusive to Germany, which is a live show. Airing weekly or daily during weekdays at 8:15 and Sundays 8:15, and we have some other time slots as well. And this is, you get in and there's a live host asking questions, and you could compete against all the other players in the hub, and you get this like Twitch chat feeling going on, and it like sort of ties in with old linear TV style. So that sense of being there together. And if you haven't tried it, you might take the chance tonight. 8:15, QuizDuell Live. So with all these things in the game, much more than we had back in 2012, we find ourselves here. The start new game button is still there, but now there's a lot of things sort of fighting for attention. You have the carousel showcasing a special quiz. The solo mode has its own button. Live and Arena are placed in the navigation bar. You have a little inbox notifier there. So the game is essentially the same, but there's much more like poking for your attention now. So you have to ask yourself, is there a risk that we do it too much and scare off core users? Would our 80-plus-year-old woman be as at home in this app as she was before? I mean, we shouldn't underestimate our players. They will find the way. Most of them have been around and playing the game for a really, really long time. And they will find their way to what they want to partake in. But of course, we have our wishes and desires for what we want to highlight and showcase, and where we want players to play. So this is where we are now, and this is sort of an open question. What's coming next will be for you to find out when we release it, basically. And that sort of concludes the basic presentation. I have some closing notes. This is nice. We have the German flag, Swedish flag, and then German flag, Swedish flag here, just for the sake of this this event. There's something special about the German and Swedish markets when it comes to Quizdol. We have released in, I don't know how many markets it is anymore, like 30 plus markets around the world. And we've had successes and failures all over. We've had successes in places you might not think, like Indonesia. We had a massive boom of players playing the game and even creating on-site events there and like doing all sorts of nice stuff. But then it sort of died very quickly as well. So what stands out is Germany and Sweden, because those are the most loyal players that we have. It's where we've had the highest reach over the years, and it's where we have the most players playing today still. And just to highlight this extra, if you go into the app today, click your profile, flip your profile card around, and you can see where you're placed in the entire sort of country language server. So the numbers you see here are the number of accounts created in the respective markets. So it's a stronger figure than downloads, because you can download the game several times. Of course, you can create several accounts, but it's still a stronger number. And this 5.5 million, that corresponds to more than half the population of Sweden. And it's a similar story in Germany, though the caveat is that it also actually includes Swiss and Austrian people. We don't want to exclude them, but it tells something about the popularity of our app, and I think also of the popularity of trivia in general in our countries. And I think that this section will have to wait a bit, the questions, maybe for the panel, unless there's something you want to add right away.
Well, first we give you a big hand, Pär.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for sharing. Yes, what is it with quiz and puns? If you go to a pub quiz, all the teams have like pun names.
Really dumb.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, we're all doing that.
Merry
Christmas and everything.
Merry Christmas.
And I've been living in Gothenburg for so many years, and that's sort of well known for being the pun city of Sweden.
All right. Well, let's maybe dig deeper into that in a minute. But first, thanks a lot, Pär.